Apparently, the rule was that if you did not consummate the marriage with the king on the wedding night, you weren't technically married, which is, come on now, that doesn't make sense. Hey everyone, welcome back to Candid Cinema. I'm Amanda, otherwise known as AMXND Reviews on Twitter, Instagram, and Letterboxd. Today I will be reviewing Queen Charlotte, a Bridgerton story from Shonda Rhimes and Julia Quinn. I love the Bridgerton universe. I think that I have to eventually read one of the books, and I think I'm going to start with Queen Charlotte. It comes out May 9th, I believe, the book. So I think they wanted to release the series. If people really liked it, they could buy the book. And I think that was really clever of them to do that, not like day and date type of situation. I also found it very funny that it is the coronation weekend and they dropped this limited series the exact same weekend. So I thought that was kind of funny. I didn't realize it until I was scrolling through Twitter and I was like, oh, it's coronation weekend. Queen Charlotte comes out this weekend. I thought that was interesting. But I think that each season of Bridgerton, anything to do with Bridgerton, has gotten better and better every single time. The chemistry has been better between their two leads. And I like that we're exploring, again, different love stories and different relationships. That's what we have at play here. Now, with Queen Charlotte, it's completely different. The whole thing of the great experiment is that the British monarchy wanted to integrate Black women and Black men into their circle. And that's what they call the great experiment. And I hate that they called it that. But again, we're looking at years and years of history. Obviously, it's revised to go with the story. So you have them exploring that Charlotte's coming from Germany to marry King George III. And Charlotte has no idea what she's getting herself into. She just understands the status combination, not so much the great experiment that comes with it as well. Until a young Agatha Danbury, played beautifully by Arsema Thomas, just fantastic, stole the spotlight. She was great until she comes in and she's supposed to be one of her lady in waiting. And she tells her that, you are a very important figure. It's not so much that you are now the queen. It's the socio-political implications of why they chose you as queen. You can change the game for many of us. You can protect many of us. The relationship between Agatha and Charlotte is really important because she's advising her about so many things that no one has really spoken to her about because her brother is blinded and he just wants a great life for his sister. The season feels short, but at the same time, each episode has so much that happens within it that it does flow well between episodes. So when Charlotte goes to King George III and that, they're going to get married without seeing each other. India Martifo, who plays young Queen Charlotte, is a freaking star. And we've seen Charlotte in, the first two seasons of Bridgerton, and she's very headstrong. She's assertive. We take her as she's a rude and cranky queen and all of that, but it kind of doubles after watching this season that she's very overprotective and loving of the crown and her king. So she will make sure that everything is proper. And more importantly, because I watched season 2 of Bridgerton again the other night, we see that Charlotte is an advocate for love because of the love she shares with George. So even though she has a tough exterior, she has to have that tough exterior. But there are instances where you do see that she is that young girl who first came to court. And I think that having the flashbacks throughout Queen Charlotte, a Bridgerton story, was really effective, flash forwards to Queen Charlotte presently to kind of set up what goes into season 3, which I really enjoyed as well. I think the love story between George and Charlotte shows a very different side of her, but also India Martifo really just nailed the character of Charlotte. And you could really tell that there are so many similarities, and it was the beginning of her becoming a queen. And that's what I really loved about it, is that you saw those early stages and the obstacles that she had to overcome with George to become the queen that she is, to basically run the kingdom on her own, because George has this sickness and he won't be able to operate the same level as Charlotte would. So she really just takes everything on her shoulders to protect the crown. It ends up being her duty more so than her husband's. So we get this marriage, this arranged marriage, and Charlotte runs out of the castle and she wants to jump the wall. And she doesn't realize that the person who's talking to her, like talking her down and not trying to escape, is actually George. So that is their first meeting. I thought their first meeting was absolutely adorable. Their conversation about how crazy the arranged marriage is and if they were to like each other without seeing each other. And she wanted to know everything about George before they got married. And I thought that was really nice to have in the moment in the garden. And George just says, he's like, I love science, astronomy, agriculture. He's a farmer. He's just like Farmer George. He's just George. He kept saying that. He's not the king. He just wants to be George. They built the foundation on the fact that they were just going to see each other as they are and no excess of like the crown and the monarchy and all of that. Like they were not going to bring that in to their relationship. It's going to be very ground level, very honest. She wanted to bring in normalcy and so did he. So that is the basis of their relationship. The audience finds out just how bad George's mental health was, where he had panic attacks and his whole body would begin to shake. So it would attack his nervous system. And you got to see the methods of doctors back then who had absolutely no idea how to treat them without shock therapy and just torture. So George had to endure this all while keeping it a secret from Charlotte. So the first half of the season is much different than the second half. There is a turning point, I believe, in episode 3 or 4, where we do get to see George's side to their wedding night. And the wedding night was a very big deal, obviously, to consummate the marriage. They need a royal heir and they need to, apparently the rule was that if you did not consummate the marriage with the king on the wedding night, you weren't technically married, which is, come on now, that doesn't make sense. So Charlotte was very confused. She's like, this is what my governess taught me. This is what we have to do. It's our wedding night. Like, it's a big special occasion. It's our wedding night. Aren't we supposed to stay together? So what George did was give Charlotte her own castle so she could stay there. And then George went to another castle and he could stay there so he could stay away from her. And I found that very heartbreaking once we find out, obviously, that he was getting that shock therapy and Charlotte had no idea. So they were like flipping back and forth from houses. He felt like he was healthy enough to actually go and live there with her. But then Charlotte notices some differences. She's like, the windows are barred up. The knives aren't as sharp as they used to be. And everyone's on constant watch of George doing something. So because Charlotte is so smart, she figured it out on her own technically. She confronts him and he still doesn't say, anything. So that turning point of when we see George going through, and then we see Charlotte kind of go in the middle of this and it's like, I have to become queen. I'm not just a wife anymore. I am queen. I have to protect my king. I have to protect our crown because I'm married to him. She just takes it upon herself and goes into his area, which she's not supposed to be at, without warning and says, I demand you give me my husband. Where the hell is he? Get him out of the doctor's office. The doctor is like going to be escorted off the premises. And she frees him. One night, he completely just goes to the heavens. He starts drawing on the walls and she goes after him because he runs away from her and goes out there, strips down, starts talking to Venus, starts talking to the stars, and she has to talk them down. So that is the last thing that we see. And then in the next episode, that is when we get the flashbacks to the wedding night, to everything that George was going through and just the pressure of the crown. And I think that obviously every mother wants to protect their son, and that's why they didn't disclose that information to Charlotte. And she found out on her own. And then after that, after she kind of frees him, she knows how to calm him down. But it's also like, let him be the person that he wants to be. If everyone in the castle understands who the king is, then it's not so much of like trying to keep him hidden. And there's a possibility to make him feel himself. I think that's the balance that she was trying to give. And she's the one that can pull that out of him, which I thought was just so beautiful, that is the connection that they have with each other. She gets pregnant the first time. I didn't know she had 15 kids at all. That surprised me. But now tying into like season 3 stuff, one of the granddaughters and the wife pass away. to, I think, her eldest son. So there's no heir to the throne, which is devastating for her because her promise to George was that our line will continue. But Golda Roosevelt, her performance as the older Queen Charlotte, especially in this season, wouldn't have worked with the powerhouse of India Martivo and that kind of tandem working together. So I thought that they worked extremely well with the flash forwards and flashbacks, and if you want to call it flashbacks. But obviously it's a prequel series, so it'd be a flash forward. So I like that they worked hand in hand. Everything about George and Charlotte's relationship is just very beautiful. They have very intimate moments and they genuinely love each other. You can feel the love like radiating off of them. And the important thing is that George, he acts out because he knows how he is. He doesn't want her, who's just like this beautiful young woman who has her whole life ahead of her, to waste it on him. So he is very conscious of that. He acts really rude to her and pushes her away. And I think that this season does explore the fact that even with someone who either has flaws, has an illness, or has their own issues that they've struggled with from like past trauma, even with all of that, you're still fighting to love the person. You're fighting to make a future with this person. And all that love will be poured into the determination to make it work. I cried a couple of times in Queen Charlotte, A Bridgerton Story, because it's just so beautiful. The dedication that Charlotte has to George. And it's crazy because George just doesn't expect that from her either. I really enjoyed this season of Queen Charlotte. It sets up season 3 because there is a little tea in regard to Lady Danbury and Violet Bridgerton, which was interesting. We got to see more of Danbury's backstory, which was devastating at first, but then she really wanted to find her love afterwards, and she did. So I'm not going to do any spoilers because when I found out, I was losing it. And I just love that even Violet Bridgerton is trying to start anew, and she's trying to understand and navigate her feelings towards other men, and she absolutely loves Edmund. She still wants to live. You don't stop living, you don't stop loving, and you don't stop caring for other people. And that's what she wants to kind of explore. So that's going to be heading into season 3. What Violet and Lady Danbury know between them and what had happened is going to move into season 3 as well. We did get a glimpse of Daphne and the Duke's children, two children. That's right, they've been busy, and I love that they just had them around there without having the Duke or Daphne there present. It's not as raunchy or uplifting as the other two, where it's like, this is new love, and they're trying to pair off, and like, this is the diamond. Like, it had nothing to do with that. So if I were to give a rating for this limited series, I don't know if we're going to get a season 2. That'd be really cool, but it is technically a spin-off to show what had happened prior, and then we're gonna push it into season 3, which is great. I would give it a 4 out of 5. I really liked it, and I'm gonna pick up a Julia Quinn novel. Let's see what happens. So if you guys enjoyed this review, please like and subscribe. Let me know in the comments who your favorite Bridgerton couple is right now, because we're 3 seasons deep. I just want to know. My personal favorite is Kate and Anthony, of course, from season 2. If you guys want to help grow this channel, there are ways to do that in the bio below. You guys can always follow me over at AMX NDA Reviews on Twitter, Instagram, and Letterboxd. I'll catch you guys next time. Keep watching movies.